Ryan Glinsky, our producer. And we are going to be joined here now live by head coach of the Michigan State Spartans, Damon Rensing. And Damon, first off, welcome to Inside the Game.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's a blast. So first off, I would imagine on some level, being that you were a former MSU player yourself, and now you have this 150th career win. Walk us through that moment here on Monday and capturing that win.
Well, it was a tough 1-0 win. So first, you're just excited to get the win. I didn't even know I was going for 150 until about an hour before the game. That's kind of how us head coaches work. We just focus on the moment. But no, once it happened, to see the players' excitement, and anytime you see your team kind of rally around you, it's a fun feeling. And then, to be honest, just a huge flashback. I mean, this is my 30th preseason. I work in preseasons between being a player. I was a volunteer coach on the women's team in '97, and then came back in '99 for 10 years as an assistant, and now my 17th year as head coach. So I think you just get a flood of memories from a player, from an assistant, thinking about the players, thinking about all the staff that's worked for you. You're just really grateful to work at a university and a great athletic department like Michigan State, because you can't get 150 wins without the people that are around you, and that to me was huge.
A lot of coaches we talk to throughout the years have talked about how it's always about the players. I think I've rarely ever heard a coach in my history of talking to them saying, "Hey, I'm really excited for me. This is it's a team award," and things like that. I want to talk about that for a moment, because I think a lot of coaches have this mindset where, well, yeah, you do this every day. You lace up your shoes every day. You put in your clipboard. You do all the things you have to do to prepare for these moments, and you absolutely should get the credit for that. But you always put it back on the players. Why do coaches do that? So I'm not saying you should be selfish about it, but why not allow that moment also for yourself?
I don't know. I never. To me, soccer is such a player's game. I mean, obviously, coaches do a lot in preparation leading up to it. There's a little bit more maybe coaching involved in college soccer because of the substitution rules and how you can manipulate things a little bit more. But I had a great coach and mentor in Joe Baum, and as a player, if we played poorly and didn't win, I didn't put a lot on Joe. And when we won as a team, I thought the player, we felt good about how we played. So as a player, I never really put a lot on the coach and never blamed him or gave him a lot of credit. So I kind of work in that same regard. And we've always, very similar to Coach Izzo in basketball, our best teams are our player-led teams, and this is a very good player-led team right now.
No, it's great. I think Nate's maybe muted. Nate, I don't know.
Sorry. There we go. I think we're good to go now. At that point, I think there's a lot of coaches at Michigan State who have been there for decades and decades. It's interesting you bring up Izzo, because I do professional baseball. I actually just got to talk to Jake Boss not that long ago, so the baseball coach at MSU. So I kind of feel like I'm on a Michigan State head coaches tour right now talking to you. We got to figure out a way to get Izzo on the show, JT, at some point. But that's a university that has maintained and retained a lot of their coaches for a long time at that program. And I think it's interesting when you talk about being in one place for as long as you have. It's just not something you see a whole lot. You don't see it a lot from players anymore. I mean, typically you'll see them go to a couple of different schools, but even with coaches at the same exact time, there's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of movement. What is it that has kept you around at Michigan State for as long as you have, from being an assistant to being the head coach and now 150 wins under your belt? What is it about that community and that school that's kept you there for as long as you have?
Well, I think, I do love the community. It's a great university. My wife, Dawn, we refer to as the head coach of our family. I've got two kids. My one daughter is a sophomore at Michigan State. So we've just grown up, in East Lansing, and so that's been huge. I think, I could coach a lot of places probably. I could get the players to believe in maybe what I'm doing. I can sell some things for sure. I understand the game, but I think when you work at a place that you played at, I'm not selling anything. I believe in this place. I believe in this program. You've lived it. And I think that really motivates you to continue. And I just want to continue to see Michigan State soccer go to new heights. I mean, going to the Final Four in 2018 was a huge accomplishment for this program. And then for us to kind of try to work to get back towards that will be awesome.
The Big Ten is arguably one of the toughest soccer conferences in the country. And we can talk about the Pac-12 and talk about the SEC, the ACC, the Big East. These are all tough conferences too. But you're talking about Indiana, who's been an unbelievable powerhouse over their history. You now have the likes of Michigan making their kind of way into it, right? With being now in the top 25, they've had a good run here the last couple of years. Staying competitive in this conference is probably one of the most challenging things you have to face as a head coach each and every season. What is the recipe for success at Michigan State to stay in that hunt and get yourself to a Big Ten tournament?
Yeah, no, it's amazing between the Big Ten and the ACC. When you add UCLA and Washington now to the Big Ten, that's a whole nother conversation probably. But when you add those teams and then the ACC, I think like 47 of the last 54 national championships have now come from those two conferences. So that just shows you the competition and the level. The thing that we've, which I'm extremely proud of, and one of our recruiting, mottos is, I'm not sure I could win a Big Ten or a national championship with just state of Michigan players, but I don't think we could do it without them being the core of our team. And so when we went to the Final Four, we had 7 starters from the state of Michigan. You look at our lineup now, we've got 6 or 7 guys starting from the state of Michigan. And this is one of our strongest teams we've had. So, and then you sprinkle in, obviously you've got to balance the transfer portal the right way. I mean, you've got to use that. But I think you can see teams overuse it and struggle. So I think when you have this much talent, you got to find good culture. You got to get old and stay old. I've been doing this for a long time. I say, 8 to 10 years ago, college soccer was a U20 league that had a couple 21 and 22-year-olds. I think now it's a U23 league that has a couple 19 and 20-year-olds when you look at the lineup. So I think it's changed that way. So you've kind of got to get old and stay old. We've with COVID and some of those things kind of in the 5th year transfer portal starting to fade away, I think you're going to get back and seeing a little bit more of that. And I think that's where culture is going to be really important.
And this is I'm going to pass back to Nate here in a moment. I had a chance to hear Greg Campy here about 6 months ago. He was asked a question about the dynamic and how things have changed from when he first started coaching to today, and what he has changed as far as his non-negotiables. Right? When you first started coaching, even when you were a player, what were the non-negotiables? Well, those have absolutely changed because the athlete and what we have access to has changed. What are some of the non-negotiables you as a head coach still have in place today that would have been in place 20 years ago? And what are the things that maybe you've had to say, hey, you know what? I don't need to worry about that anymore. It's not worth it, right? Or it's not, I have bigger fish to fry.
I think the main stuff is just, respect your teammates, respect your opponents, respect the referees. The logo never comes off. You're always representing Michigan State, your family. I think those types of standards. I think the general level of just soccer play has gone up, so you have to hold a higher standard for the players, for the training sessions, for all of those things. I think for me, that people have used the term, it went from transformational to transactional. College athletics has kind of done that. I would push back a little bit on that. I think, though, I would, over these years, you assumed when you brought a player in that they were going to be with you for 4 years, and you looked after all 28 players. And I took it personally if somebody didn't make it through or not. And I think right now you just can't do that. There's different paths, and now a path is a transfer. And if a young player isn't playing and he thinks he can find something that fits him better, and you have that honest conversation with him and he can move on, then I guess you let him do that. So I still just try to focus on the guys that want to come in and help. If you come in and come all in to help Michigan State University soccer, then I think it'll pay dividends, and we'll be all in with you, and I think that's how you get it. You just can't take it too personally with all 28 players, because there are going to be some guys that are going to kind of move on.
And to that point, and this is something that I love talking about with coaches, because they understand it, intrinsically, just how much things have changed, not just from the recruiting perspective and the individual player perspective, because I think the athlete now is far different from what the athlete was even a couple of decades back. But looking at the transfer portal specifically, we just saw that video from, and I'm blanking on his name right now, NIU's head coach, talking about how the football head coach, talking about how the portal is kind of a challenge, and he likes the challenge. He doesn't really agree with it. He thinks that it certainly has become more transactional than what it was before. How have you been able to manage that challenge specifically? Because the landscape has completely changed when it comes to not only getting players to your program, but keeping them around. I know you kind of answered that in part with what you just said, but in terms of that specifically, getting players and keeping players, how have you guys been able to manage that as a coaching staff efficiently?
Well, I think communication is huge, much more nowadays than before. So you just don't want any surprises. I think if you have constant communication and meetings with players, and my staff does, then you kind of know maybe if a kid wants to move on, or thinks it's not quite working out here. I think the other piece to this is the transfer portal works so quickly. I mean, a kid goes on a portal, he could
Yeah.
commit within 24, 48 hours, and you can make a lot of mistakes. I think where we felt we did a very good job this year, and you can overpay. There's not a lot of NIL and collectives. A lot of soccer players aren't getting paid above and beyond a full scholarship. But when you only
Right.
have 10 scholarships for 28 players, though every dollar in that scholarship is important. And I think you can see a lot of programs panic and overpay. And I thought what we did a really good job this year was finding the right players that fit our program, that make us better. And Miles Merritt, who transferred from Incarnate Word, was definitely one of them. I think he's one of the top midfielders, in the Big Ten. We had Andrew Darashian transfer from Oakland, who unfortunately did his ACL last spring, but I think you'll see some really good play out of him in the future. So you can really you can overstep. It sounds like, hey, this is awesome. We can go great, pick up some new guys, and they can mess your culture up too. So you've got to get the right guys, and you got to do it quick. And I think our staff has done a really good job with that.
Managing personalities is always so important, and I love hearing about that too, because I think that is an important part of scouting. I think we've gotten really far into the analytics and everything else along those lines as well, but personality and fit matters too, so that makes sense as to why you guys have been able to maintain a level of success. I just wanted to touch on this really quickly because you mentioned Michigan-based players, and Jonathan Turner and myself, we kind of have a unique perspective when it comes to that, not only because of his work at Oakland and UDM, but also what we do with the USL as well. I mean, you mentioned some of the Michigan-based players. Jonathan Stout is one that comes to my mind, playing in the USL. I get to call his name plenty this summer, but he played for you guys over at Michigan State. I do think it is worth mentioning there is a talented crop of players in Michigan too. I think Detroit area has a great group. I think the West Side is getting better, so it's cool to see that you guys are still focusing on Michigan-based recruiting and really putting those guys on the forefront. Anybody from the Mitten State right now on your squad that is kind of catching your eye here early in the season that's impressed?
Yeah, there's a few for sure. I mean, obviously Zach Kelly, who's just from Holt, he's a returning first team All Big Ten senior captain. Luke Spatafora, who's a freshman, scored the
Yep.
game winner against Detroit, played down at Austin. That's one of the things. Michigan based is the right way to use the term now. It used to just be in state, but one of the things that we do now is track all of these young men that are all over the country. They're from Michigan, but they might be at Sporting Kansas City Academy or St. Louis City or Real Salt Lake. So we track those guys. Luke, followed Luke at Columbus Crew in Austin FC. So those are two of the Michigan guys. Jake Spatafora, his older brother's done great at right back. We've got Will Eby and Josh Adam are our two center backs. So we really it's a really good group of Michigan, and we got a good group coming in as well.
I as we talk about this Michigan based and we talk about the athlete, today, me growing up and playing soccer, just like for you, I'd imagine, getting recognized, having a college coach or a scout come to a game, you get a letter in the mail, and there was some slight buzz, but now with highlight videos and you can do Instagram and TikToks. I mean, there are so many ways for players to get exposure outside of, going to ID camps and the ECNL and the academy environments. What's the message to the player out there today who wants to come play at Michigan State or play for a Big Ten school or a Division I program about getting recognized? Because there's a lot of players out there that are going to get caught at some point in time in this massive, massive bubble of everyone trying to set themselves apart, and it's going to be hard to do, especially with all the likes of all. So how do they get in front of you? How do they, wet your beak, so to speak, about, hey, might be a good player for our program?
Yeah, I think now more than ever, it's easy to get in front of us in some way. I think their goal is to get a coach from Michigan State to come out and see you play live. We've been here for 27 years, so we've got a vast network. We're connected with all the club coaches. So we have conversations with them. They can send us highlight videos. We're not going to offer anybody a full ride after a 3-minute highlight video. I would say make it good. I don't need to see the I don't need to see the bad plays, on a highlight
Yeah.
video, and put it to some decent music, because I watch about 2 hours. So I'm kind of a 80s 90s guy. So if they could put it to that, just as a request that's going out there. But anyway, no, I think it's to see you play live. I will say this: people ask me all the time. I mean, you break the game up into 4 areas. You've got the tactical, which is the decision making. You've got the technical, which is the skill level. You've got the physical, which is your raw athleticism, and then you've got the psychological, which is obviously the mental piece of the game. To play at this Division I level, you have to be exceptional, not good. You have to be exceptional at least one, and most likely more than those areas. Now, you don't have to be perfect at everything, but if you're not if you might have an exceptional athlete who maybe not quite as skillful, but he's a mentally tough kid, and you say, hey, I can work with this kid because he's athletic, he's good enough skill level, and this kid wants to learn, and I can work with that. Or you might have a kid who might not be that athletic, but he's an exceptional, skillful player, like the kid we had, Giuseppe Baroni, who was a semifinalist. Like, probably not the best athlete, but he was an exceptionally tactically decision maker. He was exceptional on the ball, and he was exceptional mentally as far as how he was with his teammates and things like that. So he checked 3 and was pretty decent athlete too. So I think those are the things, if you want to see you play live, you've got to do it. And we're going to do the body work. And honestly, at this day and age, we do find, I mean, people can slip through the cracks, but I will say, we find a lot of the players. So wherever you're getting recruited is probably where the level is where you're at.
Oh, that's great. This is probably the toughest question you're going to have to answer all day. Probably bar none.
DeJuan Jones should start for the U.S. national team. Yes, the U.S. middleweight DeJuan Jones should start. That's the answer.
You say Kobe Jones?
Nice.
DeJuan Jones.
Oh, DeJuan Jones. Oh, yes.
Former
DeJuan
MSU,
Jones.
yeah.
Funny story before we dive into this question. I actually refereed DeJuan Jones in the state championship game against Cranbrook in 2014. That game was an unbelievable game, by the way. So that's my one story about DeJuan Jones. But so here's my tough question. It is you're coming into town after a long road trip. Now you got to fly to the West Coast, right, and do a nice tour there. You're coming in, and you have a chance to go to a restaurant. You get off the plane. Where are you going?
In East Lansing?
Yeah, I mean, you're obviously close to home, right? So if it's East Lansing,
Raising Cane's?
Where are you going?
I have 2 that I like to go to. There's one's called the Sidebar, which is just a great little neighborhood restaurant. I highly recommend it. Good friends, good people. To me, it's all about who you're around and who you surround yourself with. So it's intimate. I'm not going to run into any students or student athletes. And then we go to the Buddies Pub and Grill on Lake Lansing. Those are my two go-tos, where I can forget about soccer for a half day, maybe watch some mindless NFL when I get off the plane, and have great service, good food, and most importantly, good friends.
No, that's cool. So is Buddy's like the pizzeria, or is it completely, because we have Buddy's Pizza here too? So
yeah, we do too. No, completely different. Just a neighborhood place.
Hey, can you guys share Raising Cane's, by the way? We need one out here in Grand Rapids or in Detroit or something. You guys are just hogging all the canes. I can't do this.
I don't know what the whole buzz is about this stuff. I mean, it's just 3 chicken strips. You get a sandwich. It's just 3. Everything's with a chicken strip, and then it's like you want a couple pieces of bread, but make it a sandwich.
They give a little cup of coleslaw.
They're good. I don't know.
Yeah.
Fries are all right. I don't know.
No, it's okay. I had it for the first time in Minnesota here a couple years ago. It was just okay. It was nothing about it was like wow. It's chicken fingers, guys. I don't know it's not complicated.
The best.
So you're going to Sidecar. What do you eat there? Is there a specific item off the menu that you're like, I got to have?
No, not a ton there. They've got actually decent pizza at Sidebar, and then good burgers, and their nachos were really good. We always are kind of a good fan. Nachos, go there, pick and eat. Buddies has specials every day. So I always like to choose a special because it's always something different. So,
Nice.
So yeah.
Well, Damon, we appreciate you stopping on by here today. Obviously, 150th career win. You've been at the helm there for, obviously, you're in your 17th season now, as you've been there for 16 years. Your overall record, 150, 113, and 49 in those 16 years. You guys take on Bowling Green here tomorrow. I think that kickoff is at 7 p.m. here tomorrow night. So we wish you and Michigan State luck the rest of the way this season, and we'd love to have you on here in the future.
Really appreciate you having me, guys, and good luck with the show. And again, great time.
All right. Thank you, Damon, very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Take care. Go Green.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Go
Go
Green.
White.
Now, for someone that grew up a Michigan fan, I'm going to respond to say, yes, you can go Green. It won't be coming from me, though.
I said go White.
I just had to get
I
that
said
in
go
there
White.
at the end.
I knew people that played there. I've been there. I've seen games. My old babysitter used to play basketball there once upon a time. So respect.
I'm not a diehard Michigan fan. I'm not a diehard really any fan except for me being a Lions fan. I'm a diehard Detroit Lions fan. That will never change. But I have worn green and white here in the past, so I can say that I have done that. So.
They say little brother, but like it's brother, so we're family.
Yeah, it's
little brother. But we're
I mean,
still in the same family.
I will
exactly.
never, ever, 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 ever wear Central Michigan anything.
Oh, come on. Fire up. And it is on Central,
all kidding
down the
aside.
field.
Come on now. Come on.
Coming up next year, we're going to talk about whether or not the MLS is going to take